should we be more concerned with the Toronto Blue Jays starting rotation? Now, the Jays were swept by the Tampa Bay Rays to start the week at the Trop. And with 4 straight losses and just 4 runs scored in the Tampa series, a lot of the questions will go to the bats. Vladdy's got cold, and of course is still on just 2 home runs, and George Springer is not hitting effectively. Now, with all of that said, I'm starting to get much more concerned with the Jays' starting rotation. Start of the year, starting rotation was supposed to be our big strength. But with a poor Jose Berrios rehab start on Sunday, continued instability from Eric Lauer, and with questions about Max Scherzer's future, I'm definitely not as optimistic as I was at the start of the season about our pitching. So today, I'm going to break down the state of the Jays rotation as of early May. We're going to talk about what has caused some significant concerns for me. And then last, I'm going to end on a suggestion with what I think this team should do to set this team up for success in the spring. This is The Morning Whistle. My name is Aaron Noronha. So the Jays starting rotation was supposed to be the big strength of this team, right? We started the season talking about the Jays potentially having too many good arms. You had Gausman, Cease, Yesavage, Berrios, Bieber, Ponce, Lauer. But with injuries to Yesavage, Berrios in spring training, and Ponce to start the season, our rotation has seen a lot of uncertainty. And so far this season, we've been really dependent on good outings from Kevin Gausman and Dylan Cease. And we've been relying on Eric Lauer, Patrick Corbin, and Max Scherzer to fill the void. For the last month, I'd been saying, don't panic on the starting pitching. Our best arms will come back, and then we will have options. Well, what's changed? I'm not as bullish today as I was on the rotation even 2 weeks ago. And there's several reasons for that. First, our arms have not healed as fast as we would have liked. Yes, Trey Yesavage has now come back, and he's had 2 solid starts. He's only given up 1 earned run in 9 innings. But progression from the other arms in the IL has not been as positive. Shane Bieber is still a ways away. I know this week he said at Florida that he's feeling a lot better, but he still hasn't progressed to throwing to live batters. And one has to think, given his recent injury history from last year and Tommy John surgery, the Jays are going to be really conservative with his return to the big club. And even when he does return, one has to imagine that there will have to be breaks in his schedule. As for Jose Berrios, there's a lot of concern with him. He pitched on Sunday in AAA. It was supposed to be his final rehab start, and it was not good. He pitched 3 2/3 innings. He gave up 6 hits, 4 walks, 7 earned runs in total, only 1 strikeout. Now, of course, everyone's going to say the old adage is you never look into the outcomes, you look at the stuff. How is he throwing? Well, his average sinker was 90.7 miles an hour. That's nowhere near what it should be. And it was the 3rd straight start in a row in the minors where his sinker velocity fell. He's not ready to play, guys. And apparently after that, the Jays agreed because he's going for an MRI. And the expectation here is that he might need some rest. Or even if he's going to get close to a return, guess what? He's not going to be able to go out every 5 days. The second thing that's happened is the pitchers we've been relying on, Lauer, Scherzer, and Corbin, well, let's just say they have some collective concerns. And I don't think any of them are necessarily pitchers we can rely on over the long term. Max Scherzer. To me, I hate saying it, but I do question whether he might be done in this league. He's 41. You can see his body falling apart. He's continued to complain about right forearm fatigue. And he's had 5 starts. Only one of them has been good, and that was his first start. And he's given up 7 home runs in 18 innings. guys, he's 41. The fact that he's even able to throw here and there is amazing. But I just don't see how he can be a starting pitcher on an elite team. Eric Lauer has regressed, meanwhile, as many in the analytical community have predicted. And my biggest frustration with Lauer, aside from some of his comments, has been this terrible predisposition to give up hits and runs in bunches. On Monday against the Rays, first inning, gives up a hit to their leadoff hitter Simpson, walks Caminero, and then immediately gives up a homer on the first pitch. He's done that several times this season. In 31 innings, he's given up 33 hits and 14 walks. Like, that's even worse than Scherzer in terms of his whip. And I look at it and say, I don't see him as anything more than injury relief, either as a starter or in the bullpen. And I think that while he can, half-ass it from here, I really think that we need better pitching from, what technically is our number 4 spot. And then last, Patrick Corbin. He has been our third best starter this season, and 100% fair play to him. He finds ways to eat innings. On Wednesday, he pitched 5 2/3, gave up only 2 runs. He's got a ton of variety, and he hits the strike zone. And he is older at 36, but he's not Max Scherzer age. So I look at it and say, well, I think he can keep going out every 5 days. My issue is not about whether he can stay healthy and take the mound and eat innings. The concern that I have is whether he can continue to perform above the replacement level, because the evidence suggests over the last 5 years that he's been below replacement value. Only once in the last 5 seasons does he have a positive WAR, and only once in the last 5 seasons does he have an ERA below 5. And so with that said, I do have questions whether he can continue to pitch as a 3.69 ERA pitcher into the summer. So with all of that said, all of the concerns, right, with Bieber and Berrios still on the IL, with concerns about Max Scherzer's long-term history with this club, with Eric Lauer's inconsistency, and with Patrick Corbin's potential regression, what should the Jays do? We have some big division series coming up. And I do wonder, do we need to bring in another starter? Of course, I could also hear the response to say, well, with the payroll, do we even have the room? I see a clear issue with velocity right now. Lauer's been up and down with his fastball velocity and his cutter velocity. Gausman's been up and down with his fastball velocity. And we clearly can see that Berrios' velocity has dropped from his early rehab starts. And so I think the Jays need to look at extending their rotation to 6 starters. It's what the Dodgers do, for example, who more or less run with 6 starting pitchers. And by the way, that's without Blake Snell, who's still on their IL. I appreciate it's to accommodate the unicorn Shohei Ohtani, but even guys like Taylor Glasnow and Yamamoto have more or less been pitching on 5 days rest. And you can see it in their outcomes. They perform better with the rest. And so given that we have a guy like Kevin Gausman who prefers extra rest, given that we have guys who we will need to manage their workloads, such as Berrios and Bieber, and given some of the challenges that we've seen with Eric Lauer, I think this is what we need to do. And so when Berrios is ready to go, I would bring him up and extend the rotation to 6 players. We can continue to see how Patrick Corbin manages through the spring. We can figure out if Eric Lauer is starting pitching worthy. And then once Bieber's in a position to return, we can make a call on what we do. Either we stick with 6 and move maybe Lauer to the bullpen, or we could go back to 5. In any case, I'm not expecting the bats to magically become better. And so if this team has any chance of getting back to the postseason, it will be because of the starting pitching. This is the Morning Whistle. My name is Aaron Arona.